Hi, and welcome to the AlphaSquared Explainer video. In this video, we'll walk you through everything you need to know about how our platform works. We'll cover buying, selling, reinvestments, the hypothetical risk price matrix, and simulations. We'll use Bitcoin as an example throughout, but the same principles apply to all the assets that we support. If you're interested in learning more about the risk model, however, and how risk is calculated, you should check out this video or join our Telegram group where we frequently answer those types of questions in more detail. So let's jump in. So how does buying using the risk model and risk-based DCA work? The idea is simple. The lower the risk, the more you invest. In this chart, the orange line represents the risk of Bitcoin on a scale from 0 to 100. The green and yellow areas represent different risk levels or risk bands in steps of 10. So these green areas indicate our buy zones for this particular strategy, which is the moderate strategy. So imagine you DCA $100 every month or every week. The principle is the same. At a risk level of 40, you would invest your regular $100. If risk comes down to 30, you double your investment to $200. If risk comes down even more to 20, you triple it to $300, and so on. This approach allows you to save up on cash and invest less when the risk and typically also the price is high. And when the risk and price decrease, you can instead invest more, essentially getting more Bitcoin for the same amount of dollars invested. You probably wonder what happens if risk drops to a new buy level right after you bought. Do you wait to buy until next month, or do you buy right away? The answer is you immediately invest to take advantage of the lower risk. If you invest monthly, you don't wait until the next month to execute the purchase. This is why, in the strategy builder, you might see more than one purchase being executed per month if you have chosen monthly DCA. Just like here, for example. This is a strategy that invests monthly, and here we're looking at July 27th until August 27th. As you can see, we observe 2 additional purchases right here. These get executed due to the risk falling into new risk bands. So you take advantage immediately. The reason for this approach is that risk might not stay at extreme levels for long, so you want to seize the opportunity. As a side note, in the current version of the strategy builder, the amounts invested for both DCA and risk-based DCA will always be the same. This means that whatever you invest in risk-based DCA will be evenly distributed across the DCA period, just like how traditional DCA works. The reason for this is to make it easier to compare the two methods. However, this is not set in stone, and we continuously discuss this with our community in Telegram. So if you'd like to see this changed, please join the debate in there. Through testing, we have created 3 preset strategies: conservative, moderate, and aggressive. These strategies differ in how they adjust the investment amounts based on risk levels. So you can choose a strategy that matches your risk tolerance, whether you prefer buying at higher risks, at lower risks, or a more balanced approach. Additionally, you can define a custom strategy tailored to your specific preferences. If you want to bounce ideas, you should join our Telegram group. Many of our users and community members are happy to discuss their strategies. Now, let's talk about how selling works using the risk model and risk-based DCA. In this chart, the orange areas represent our sell zones. The concept here is similar to buying, but in reverse. The higher the risk, the more you sell. So imagine you've been buying Bitcoin for some time and you have accumulated 1 full Bitcoin. If the risk level reaches a selling point in your strategy, you sell a portion of that 1 originally accumulated Bitcoin. So for example, here at a risk level of 60, you would sell 10%, which equals 0.1 Bitcoin. At a risk level of 70, you would sell 20%, which equals 0.2 Bitcoin. At a risk level of 80, you would sell 30%, which equals 0.3 Bitcoin, and so on. There are 3 important notes about selling that you need to keep in mind. First, the selling portion is based on the total asset that you originally accumulated, not on what you have left. For example, at 60 risk, you sell 10%, which equals 0.1 BTC. At 70 risk, you sell 20%, which equals 0.2 BTC. So not 20% of the remaining 0.9 BTC. This ensures that most of your Bitcoin is reserved for higher risk levels. That's the first thing. The second thing is if risk stays the same, you don't sell 10% over and over again the next month and a month after that and so on. You wait until the next risk threshold is reached. Since risk can stay the same for long periods, selling 10% repeatedly over and over would deplete your holdings pretty quickly. So instead, you hold and you wait for the next higher risk level to be reached. Or if the risk level drops, then you continue accumulating and start fresh. When the sell threshold is reached again, you simply then start over. For now, you have to track what you have sold and not sold yourself. But in the future, we will track this for you and also enable you to automate your investing entirely through your exchange of choice. The third thing and final thing is you don't need to sell 100% of your Bitcoin. Your strategy can involve selling just a portion and keeping the rest. Additionally, the sum of all selling percentages here can never exceed 100%. What that means is no short selling allowed, at least not in our strategies, but yeah, you do you. This approach ensures that as the risk and typically the price rise, you secure profits by selling portions of your holdings. It's essentially the best of both worlds. If price and risk keeps rising, great, you have a bunch of BTC left to sell. If price and risk falls, great, you just took some profits. There's no predictions involved, and it does wonders for your peace of mind. Just like with buying, you can choose a strategy that matches your risk tolerance, or you can define everything yourself in here or in the strategy builder. Now, let's talk about how reinvesting works using the risk model and risk-based DCA. So reinvestments are actually a pretty important part of risk-based DCA. So to exemplify, suppose you invest $100 into Bitcoin and sell it for $150, making a $50 profit. Setting this reinvestment slider to 80% would mean that you reinvest 80% of those $150 that you sold for, which equals reinvesting $120. Now remember that the remaining $30 will be kept on the sidelines forever. So think about how much is reasonable and realistic to keep for consumption when you sell. This is essentially why the default is set to 85%. This slider also applies to losses. So if your strategy makes a loss, you would reinvest less to account for losing money. This just makes it more fair to evaluate the strategy and keeping things balanced. Now, you might wonder how reinvested amounts are distributed across your buy strategy. Well, imagine you have a really simple strategy, one that involves investing $10 at 10 different risk levels, totaling $100 in your buy strategy. Now, if you have $50 to reinvest from profits that you made, you would distribute those $50 proportionally across your buy strategy. So for the first risk level in your strategy, $10 of $100 is 10%. $50 times 10% is equal to $5 to be added to the investment at that risk level. The new purchase would be your initial $10 plus the distributed $5 from your reinvestments, equaling $15. This process is repeated for each risk level. Now, in this case, for this simple strategy, it would be 15 added to every single investment. In the strategy builder, we track how much of each investment that you make is made up of reinvestments versus original buy values. Once all the reinvested cash is equal to the total amount you wanted to reinvest, the buy values will return to their original amount. Currently, these reinvestments are not accounted for in the strategy updates that you get via email, which means you need to keep an eye on it yourself. However, just like with selling, we will eventually track this and build a plug-and-play tool to automate the entire process for you. This compounding effect is a highly underestimated benefit of risk-based DCA. We have used this now for 3 years, and the effect is significant. You should remember that the percentage you choose should, of course, align with your risk tolerance. This is another thing that you can potentially discuss with the community members in Telegram if you wish to. Let's move on to talking about the hypothetical risk price matrix and how it can be used in your strategy. The hypothetical risk price matrix shows you what price corresponds to what risk level in the current market conditions. So it allows you to set limit orders according to your strategy, helping you to semi-automate your approach. It's very important to understand that these are hypothetical scenarios. They have proven very effective for Bitcoin, but they may vary for other assets. The most important things to keep in mind are that these levels are not predictions. They do not predict that peaks or bottoms will occur at specific risks or specific price levels. They simply tell you what price would correspond to what risk if price were to be at that level today. The second thing to keep in mind is that hypothetical risks and prices adjust over time as the market adapts. So for Bitcoin, these changes have been rather smooth, but that might not be the case for all other assets. We update these approximately every 24 hours, and you can access these via the API. And you can find the documentation to that in your user dashboard. Finally, let's briefly cover how simulations work in the strategy builder and how they can be used to forward test your strategy. The simulations project Bitcoin price trajectories into 2027. We have three different scenarios: bull run, recession, and weak bull run slash crab walk of sorts. These scenarios help you understand how your strategy might perform under different market conditions, making it more robust and better prepared for various possible futures. It's important to note that these simulations are purely statistical. They do not involve predictions or subjective opinions from us or anyone else. We just derive various statistical measures and use machine learning to simulate the prices. This means that they don't tell you what will happen, but rather what can possibly happen from a statistical point of view. Currently, they start on the 27th of February 2024 and run until 26th of February 2027. This means that they are static, and once enough time passes, we will replace them with new simulations. That's it for the explainer video, guys. We hope this has answered some of your questions. If you need further clarification, just leave a comment below or send an email. For more detailed discussions, you should join our Telegram. We always love to chat about these sorts of things. Until then, take care.